When the United States and Israel launched coordinated airstrikes against Iran in February 2026, the military calculation was relatively straightforward. The goal was a swift, highly targeted kinetic operation designed to disable nuclear facilities and retreat. But while the physical military engagement was contained, the financial fallout was instantaneous. Before the smoke had cleared over Tehran, a massive panic had already seized global trading floors. This chart tracks Brent crude oil during the conflict's initial days. The price spikes almost vertically, crashing into the $120 mark. Traders scrambled, suddenly forced to price in the indefinite closure of regional energy supplies. A localized military operation had immediately triggered a direct attack on the functioning of the global economy itself. The epicenter of this financial shockwave is a narrow waterway between Oman and Iran, the Strait of Hormuz. Normally, 15% of the world's oil flows through this choke point. In response to the airstrikes, Iranian forces effectively closed the strait. They accomplished this using asymmetric warfare, a tactic where a weaker force uses unconventional, highly accessible weapons to disable a stronger opponent. By launching cheap, low-tech drones at massive commercial vessels, they paralyzed multi-million-dollar shipping infrastructure. This visualization shows the total global supply of liquefied natural gas cooled to a liquid state for easier shipping. Following a secondary drone strike on Qatar's main export facility, nearly a fifth of this entire global supply was wiped out overnight. Advanced Western navies simply lack the capacity to defend every commercial tanker from swarms of kamikaze drones. Without cheap insurance models to cover the astronomical new risks, global shipping companies had no choice but to halt operations. The pricing fallout spread outward instantly. In Europe, natural gas costs surged by over 60% as industrial sectors braced for energy starvation. In Asia, the sudden drop in imported supply set off a desperate scramble. Nations realized their gas storage tanks were unusually empty for the time of year, leaving them highly exposed. Governments reacted by implementing energy protectionism. This is a policy where a country strictly limits its own exports to keep domestic prices artificially low and shield its citizens from global market shocks. Major energy producers, including China and India, began restricting the export of refined fuel products, stockpiling resources to ensure uninterrupted access for their own households. Transport is a key input for almost every sector of modern commerce. When major nations hoard energy, they bottleneck the system further. A localized drop in Middle Eastern supply compounds into a self-inflicted, worldwide supply chain paralysis. For the American consumer, macroeconomic supply shocks translate into immediate, visible pain at the local gas pump. The United States hasn't experienced this flavor of sudden, severe energy insecurity since the Arab embargo of the 1970s or the Iran-Iraq War of 1979. This polling graph breaks down approval of President Trump's handling of the situation. Facing midterm elections, his administration encountered a voter base highly weary of inflation. Among independents and non-MAGA voters, disapproval margins spiked as the domestic cost of living began to surge. In a hyper-interconnected global market, it is impossible for a leader to wage kinetic warfare abroad without inflicting punishing, immediate financial consequences on their own voters at home. So, what happens to the global economy when the shooting actually stops? We enter a period defined by a new risk premium. This is an extra, built-in cost added to goods and energy, reflecting the constant danger of future supply disruptions. Because asymmetric drone warfare proved so highly effective at disrupting maritime choke points, supply chain managers and logistics companies must now permanently factor the threat of sudden conflagration into their overhead. For investors, businesses, and policymakers, the contrast between a buoyant equity market and an increasingly fragile physical world is completely stark. The era of assumed global energy stability has ended. Even after the military conflict resolves, the world economy is left more volatile, deeply fragile, and significantly harder to govern.